Great. Good morning, everybody. I can see numbers are starting to come in there, and we have a great attendance this morning. So I'm just going to let the numbers spill in there. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us. We value your time, and we want to make the best use of the hour that we have coming up now. So I'm just keeping an eye on the numbers here. So just in terms of general work around on the webinar, we have 2 points of contact really in the chat and the Q&A. So I know we always start webinars talking about the weather in one way or another, and certainly this morning I'm in I'd normally say sunny County Wicklow, but this morning in Wicklow it was biblical with rain. It was time for Noah's Ark, I think. So if you could just drop a message maybe into the chat to let us know that you can hear us, and maybe let us know where you're dialing in from, that would be great. I can see about half the audience is in already. So also we'll have the Q&A during the webinar. So, you know, in terms of the audience, as we like to call you, participants, we really do want you to participate in the conversation, and drop in any questions that come up during the presentations as they go on. Now, I don't see anybody. Either you're all shy or there we go. Let's say it now. So the chat is showing as disabled. So so there might be a tech issue there, but at least some of you have been able to reach me through Q&A, so that's great. So thankfully we have Fernanda and a team behind us to support us on the tech side. So I shall let them work away on that, and we'll start to get going. So as I said earlier, you're very welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I'm excited to hear from Global this morning, and I suppose the overview in terms of what we want to achieve this morning, look, is really to give you an overview as an audience about Great Place to Work, some information around certified and what that means, and some of the process involved in that for you as organizations, and then mainly to hear the story of Global in Ireland, how they engaged with us originally, and now how they've got to celebrate being best workplace in Europe. So as I said, there's a great mix in the audience this morning, which I'm delighted to see. So we've some new organizations that have just joined us in recent weeks that are just looking to capture some more information. We've some organizations that are about to join us and have brought some of their team on to learn more. And so we have some other organizations as well that are just looking at Great Place to Work for the first time to understand and learn a little bit more about what's involved. So in that regard, I suppose the aim is to give you a really good overview. We want to answer questions. We may not have the opportunity or chance to get into all the granular detail of all your questions, but we certainly aim to do that. We've had some questions in advance, thankfully, so that's a big help, and we look to answer those as we go along. But we have an hour in total, so we look to use that as much as possible. We are going to have some polls along the way, just to capture some feedback from you. I'm hoping that won't be affected by the chat and tech issue, but if it is, we'll overcome that. And also finally, I did get the voice at the beginning to say we are recording the session. So this session is being recorded, and for those attending, we will look to send on the recording. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce my colleague Shane to go through the process and what's involved from Great Place to Work. But we might just try and launch our first poll there if we could. Fernanda, if you can see if that's working. And we'll see if that pops up. If it doesn't, I shall move over to you, Shane, a little bit more quickly than maybe we planned. But we've a great room full here at the moment anyway. Okay, so I don't see the poll popping up, and we'll look to overcome that. So maybe Shane, I will kind of slide over to you. Shane is my colleague, and we'll have our details on screen later on for follow-up. Oh, here we go. Oh, and it's gone again. You need to be very quick on this poll. It came up and it went away again. Maybe we'll give it one more try. So the poll actually is a question when we just want to see how you feel about your workplace. And the question is, do you feel that you work in a great place to work? already, just to get a sense of where people are. So it's certainly up on my screen, and it's gone again. No, it's up on my screen there. So hopefully that'll hold. So if you'd like to click on that, please. Do you think you work in a great place to work? It's a single choice poll, so it's yes or no, and that will run for a few seconds there, and we'll get to measure that response, just to see where people are at. And I'm just going to take a moment to check the Q&A there to see if there's any other information for me. Good morning from me, then good morning from Cork. There we go. It didn't take us long for Cork to get a mention. Cork always get in there nice, and Kingsley in Cork, very good. Yes, and hopefully we can overcome that. We can overcome that. Now the poll is not updating for me, so what I might just do is not take any more time on that. Shane, I'm going to hand over to you to introduce Great Place to Work and position us there a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. And before I kind of introduce more about, the process for becoming certified as a great place to work, I think it's really important to first take a look at maybe the benefits of going through that process and what going through that certification journey can do for your business. So I actually want to refer to a call that I had last month with a recruitment company, because when I asked the lady in question, how did she hear about Great Place to Work? She said, there isn't a job seeker in Ireland who doesn't know Great Place to Work, because what a lot of people tend to do is when they're looking for jobs, they go to the certified organizations page of a website to kind of flick through that to see if there are companies they're interested in applying to, because that page in itself is essentially a list of companies who are verified as having great workplace cultures through the eyes of their own employees. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be your own employees certifying you through their feedback, as opposed to us, really. So from a talent attraction point of view, it can be very beneficial to kind of go through this process. And then also from a talent retention point of view, by going through this process, you're signaling to the employees that you do have that you do care about their feedback and that you do care about building a great workplace culture for them. In terms of competitive edge, if, for example, you're submitting a tender for work or a business proposal and you can show that you're a Great Place to Work certified, it could potentially give you a competitive edge. And this third one here is very interesting. We actually created an index of the market returns for the best workplaces, the public companies that we work with, and we put their market returns versus the S&P 500, and it outperformed it 3 times. So what this is indicating is that building great workplace cultures is not just good for your people, but actually good for your business too. And finally, in terms of benchmarking, it's important to note that Great Place to Work has been around for almost 30 years now this year. We have offices in 67 countries around the world, and we have surveyed over 11 million employees. The reason that this is relevant is that when it comes to actually reviewing your survey results, we're able to create a lot of different benchmarks that are applicable to your business, whether it's based on your industry that you're operating in, your company size, the countries or markets in which you operate. So it really allows your management to make informed, data-driven decisions based on the results of the survey. And that in itself is the real value in working with us, regardless if you're certified or not. You are going to learn a lot about your business and where your business is today versus where you might want it to be down the road. So in terms of how do you become certified, where do you begin? It really is an employee survey that underpins everything that we do. So our employee survey is called the Trust Index Survey, and it's sent to all of your employees because we want everyone in your organization to have the equal opportunity to respond and give feedback. This survey happens over the space of 2 weeks, and it can be answered on any device that can connect to the internet. Those 2 weeks are chosen by you, the client. Now, the only other thing that we'll ask you to do is to fill in what's called a culture brief, which is a short form with some demographic questions, things like what's your company name, your industry, how many employees you have, and so on. This is only answered by, it could be answered by anyone in your organization, but typically someone from HR or someone who would know these answers to these types of questions. And the reason that we ask you to fill in this culture brief before the survey ends is so that, once your survey ends, you'll actually learn if you're certified almost immediately. And if you are certified, we will publish your company profile on our website. And the information that we use to publish this web profile is just extracted from this culture brief. So rather than kind of chasing you for this information after the survey ends, we want you to focus more on activating that certification and celebrating with your employees. So again, it really is just this employee survey that will underpin everything going forward in terms of what we do. Now, how do you become certified? What do you need to get? What do you need to score? Well, in that survey, you need to score 65%. Now, the questions in the survey, they cover different topics. Some look at the relationship between management and the employee. Some look at the relationship of colleague to colleague. Others look at the relationship of the degree of pride that someone has with the work they do for the company or the work that the company does for society. So if you score an overall average score of 65% or higher, you'll be certified right away. The culture brief is not scored, but it is required for certification. And if you're certified, you'll be given this certification badge, which is valid for 1 year from the month that you've submitted both of these parts here. Now, in terms of activating this certification and the achievement, we often get asked, what's the difference between certification and our best workplaces list? Well, certification is not a competition. Imagine if every company in Ireland did our survey and every company passed, well, then every company is certified. But our best workplaces lists are kind of best of the certified companies lists for that year. So we also have industry specific lists. So if you are, for example, a tech company, your certification score will automatically be considered as a candidate for our best workplaces in tech list. So your potential recognition pipeline is actually quite long all throughout the year, not just related to the certification, but also the different lists that may be applicable to your business. So this is a really good opportunity for you to have multiple kind of touch points for you to, go out into the market and share that, not only certified in October, but I also made the best workplaces list in February or the tech list in May and so on. Now, in terms of our best workplaces list, there is a deadline involved. So there's no deadline for certification, but if you want to be considered for our next best workplaces list, which will be published in February 2023, you need to be certified by the 15th of December this year. Given that the survey takes 2 weeks, that means you would need to start your survey by the 1st of December or thereabouts in order to be a candidate for the next best workplaces list. So yeah, if in case you want to go forward and move ahead with this type of process, of course, you can reach out to myself or Brian to do so. But before I pass you back over to Brian, we have another poll that we'd like to ask you very quickly. So if we can get that popped up on screen, that'd be great. So we're going to revisit poll 1 here. If you wouldn't mind answering that very quick. Do you think you work in a great place to work? We'll just give you a couple of seconds there. It just gives a good sort of baseline indication of, who's in attendance and if you believe you're already at a great place to work. So I'll give you a couple of moments there to answer that. Okay, so let's see the results. 88% think that they do already work at a great place to work, which is fantastic. I mean, that's what you want.
The right audience.
That's what you want to hear. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's brilliant. And the second poll, I think we'll get it done now as well. If we can bring that up on screen, it is, do you already have an employee survey in place in your organization? Yes or no? And if you do, how often do you survey your employees? Is it once per year, every quarter, or more often? So please go ahead and answer those questions and we'll get the results up in a moment as well.
Thanks, Shane. You're the poll master. I wasn't able to do it, right? That's a great response to the first poll. That's a very high score. Okay. Just while that poll is filling in there, Shane, a question came in while you were presenting around about certified and headcount and the numbers. So the question was from somebody in an organization, they have circa 50 and they're asking if you can be certified. So the good news is we can certify organizations less than 20 actually, and it is a very simple process. So I know we'd said we do Q&A at the end, but just to cover that one off rather than keeping that person waiting, we can actually certify organizations through the survey with less than 20. And I'll hand back over to you there, Shane.
Great, yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the results here, do you have an employee survey in place? 60% have said yes, 40% no, so almost equal there. And then of those who mentioned, of that 60%, how often do you survey the year? The majority would survey once per year, with a small amount surveying every quarter and 4% more often than that. So really interesting results there. It's great to see that some of the companies already have surveys in place. It's a good way, especially if we're working remotely, just to kind of keep in touch with employees and make sure that they're still, happy and healthy and all that. So that's great. Well, I'm sure we'll revisit that as we talk further and introduce our guests. So thank you, Brian. I'll pass it back over to you now.
Great. Thanks a million, Shane. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And thanks for your responses there on that, particularly on that second poll. I find that very interesting that, that 60% of organizations are serving, but 40% are not. So, certainly where we hear from our clients is that they use the survey tool as a way to check in and an early identifier with their people as to where they stand in relation to certain issues. So it's interesting that 40% are still not serving. So we can certainly help with that. So moving on now to the main piece of our webinar this morning, it gives me a really great pleasure to introduce Gráinne Quinn from Global, and I know you're going to start to share your slides in a moment. Gráinne, has been with Global for a number of years and has, gives her great experience across the breadth of the company. So she's not just in one element of the business. I see your official title there now, Gráinne, is Business Resource Manager, but in the past, had roles in administration, marketing, executive assistant as well. And also then I suppose what jumps out to me is supporting managers in roles in HR, IT, facilities, and across the whole business. So that's, I think, gives us a great opportunity for Gráinne to talk into the global experience in Ireland and how they've used Great Place to Work. So the last time I met Gráinne was in sunny Venice, and we had a great celebration there for you. And congratulations on that again. And we're looking forward to hearing about the path and how you began and some of the experiences along the way, Gráinne. So I'm going to hand over to you there now and look forward to hearing the story. Are you okay there?
Thank you, Brian, and
Great.
thank you for inviting me onto this webinar today and with Shane. It's been some year for us regarding Great Place to Work. I think I'm still full of the buzz of the excitement of Venice. And if you're going to receive an award for Best European Workplaces, I tell you, Venice is a great place to do it. So it was absolutely fabulous. Thank you. I work with Global, so for those of you who don't know us, we're market leaders in outdoor advertising in Ireland. So basically, we provide an audience for advertisers who wanted to target people out and about through lots of our formats. So we're in transit, retail, stadia, rail. We manage some of Ireland's most valuable out-of-home contracts, such as CIE, premium shopping centres, and we're market leaders in out-of-home digital. So you'll see our clients' adverts all the time when you're out and about. So that's what we do. That's Global. But really, this is Global. This is the 48 members of our really dedicated team that's split between our office in Adelaide and Adelaide Road and our depot out in Kingswood, and then a further 13 staff in Belfast. And really, this is what makes Global. It's this team. So when we think of Great Places to Work, as we were looking at Great Places to Work, and we were thinking, you think of companies like Google and Facebook and Zendesk, and we're probably in the unenviable position of looking out of our office right across to this bar in Zendesk's building, which is pretty impressive. But it's not one size fits all. You want it to be a great place to work for your business, for your people, and that's different from organization to organization. You want to respond to the specific wants and needs of your organization. So when we were looking to see, what can we do to make Global even better, make it a really good place to work, we identified the Great Place to Work model as one that we felt would deliver for us. So why would Global invest financial and people resources into the Great Place to Work model? Well, it gives us an opportunity for our employees to be heard. It gave us a comprehensive and confidential survey for our employees to do. And from that survey, we were able to benchmark ourselves against the best. And so that way we could learn where we needed to improve. Access to other Great Place to Work companies gave us ways to make those improvements. We could see best practice in different organizations. And it helps us to retain, as Shane said, to retain and recruit the best people. And importantly for us with the investment is it positively impacts the bottom line. And at that stage, when we got involved with Great Place to Work, initially accreditation was like a secondary consideration. It wasn't really the first thing we were thinking of. So for our staff, what does a great place to work look like? Well, a great place to work is one where you trust the people you work for, have pride in what you do, and enjoy the people you work with. We felt that was a good fit for what we wanted for our organization. That was another reason that we were working with Great Place to Work. So for us in Global, we believe there are two main factors that determine the type of company we are. Two things that are really key for us. The first one of those is care. And I'm talking about genuine, sincere care that comes from the top down and then goes across our teams. This must be real. If you're paying lip service to this, your team will know that they'll sense that very quickly. Get to know your team as individuals. In Global, this is very much driven by our Managing Director, Colin Leahy. And for example, during COVID, every few weeks he rang each and every person in our organization, a personal call just to see how they were doing, how they were coping, how their family was. Work wasn't part of this call. The second key thing for us is trust. We spent a lot of time building a culture of trust within Global. We're showing that we're trustworthy and that we trust those in our teams. Building trust, like building a great place to work, takes time. It's a process. It's about being consistent and predictable interaction over time. It's repeatedly doing things, repeatedly doing what you believe is right, until people eventually say, that's just the way we do things. That's who we are, where it becomes natural and expected. And we can see the results of this work, of this care and this work to build that culture of trust through our survey. And survey, as Shane was talking about earlier, how trust is measured in the survey. And we can see here our growth of high trust over, this is just some of the years we've done it, go back to 2014 to 21. So if you look at this, in 2014, our high trust levels were just over 50%. Now they're over 80%. I think for us, we really saw that trust and the evidence of the work that had been put in COVID, when we were all called together and said, okay, all office staff are going to be working from home. You have to work from home. And people just got on with it. They met with their teams. They sorted out the equipment they needed. They looked for what they wanted. They gathered, they shared stuff. They talked within their departments about how it was going to work. There was no suspicion. I sort of read a lot about COVID, and I've seen in a lot of conversations where people were either suspicious of each other when they're going to work. There was a feeling that they were being checked up on by management. Management were saying, how is this going to work? That didn't arise with us. And I believe that was down to all that work that had been put in to build that culture of trust already. So you could see the evidence of it there. Also, in Great Place to Work, when you're working with them, one of the things that we measure is this question. It's called taking everything into account. This is a great place to work. When you see our progression, okay, it's not all plain sailing. There are challenges. It's up and down. But overall, you can see that upward trend. And that's about being consistent in how we treat staff and consistent in that care and the trust. I asked, as part of work for Great Place to Work at one stage, I asked our team what personally makes Global great for them on a completely personal level. And I think the response that we got from one of our operations team sums this up really well, sums it up better than I could say it. He said to us that over many years, the company had given him so much. It has given him security for himself and his family in the form of continuous, stable employment. It's given him a sense of belonging and a place where he feels he can make a difference. It has given him challenges to overcome and goals to achieve, and it has nurtured and supported him every step of the way. It has given him understanding during times of personal difficulty and the environment in which he can grow and learn a little bit more each and every day. And I think that is a really, really good description of how global is a good place to work. And it makes me very proud that that's the kind of response that we get from our team. So how do we do this? How do we build on this genuine care and embed the trust? And to be perfectly honest, it's in everything you do. It's everything is connected. It's in your practices. It's in the way that you behave. It's in the things that are important to you. It's in how you communicate and how you brand the things internally. There's a lot in there, but it is everything you do.
Absolutely, Gráinne. Thank you very much. Sorry, I was just unmuting myself there. Took a moment for that to go through. Thank you very much. That really was a whistle-stop tour through a long path and a long experience with Great Place to Work. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. And obviously we've had some discussion in advance of this. And something that you touched on that really interests me. You know, trust is a big word, and it can mean a lot it does mean a lot to organizations, but demonstrating that, there was a point that you touched on there in terms of demonstrating trust early on with your people. Could you talk into that a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind?
I think when we recruit somebody, we go through a recruitment process, and we believe that at the end of that, we believe they're the right people for us. And we've talked to them about us, the organization and the job, and we believe that they see themselves as that our company is a good fit for them. So from the day they start, we presume that they are going to do the job. We're not testing them. But sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes there will be talks afterwards. But from the beginning, you presume that they're going to work. You trust them from the beginning, and you demonstrate that, and you support them, and they're a full member of the team from the beginning. Sometimes somebody says to us, "When will I be permanent?" And we say, "Well, you are permanent. You've been recruited in a permanent role." It's that trust being shown from day one, being expected by the people in the organization, by their colleagues, so that their colleagues will trust them and support them, so that they are from the very beginning experiencing the care and the trust that is part of our organization. We had a lovely lady that started with us a few years ago, and in her first week, she got really bad news that that a friend of hers had passed away. And obviously she was very upset. And I think she was overwhelmed to see that she got the support that we would have just automatically done to anybody in our team. And she felt like, I've only started, that she hadn't proven herself yet. But we trust somebody from the very beginning. And that builds the trust. And then your colleagues see that. And, everything we do, we're trustworthy with our clients. The way we work, we're trustworthy with our suppliers. It's across the organization, and people just continuously see that, and then they believe it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to jump in here, because we actually had a very interesting question from Katie regarding, how do you ensure people don't really cheat during this process in terms of answering the survey? But really, trust is kind of like the cornerstone of all positive human interaction, and it's really what we're trying to promote. Building levels of trust between management and the employee. And when answering this survey, it really is in the employee's best interest to answer honestly, because that is the only way that they will see genuine improvements in the company thereafter. Because if you're just answering it for the sake of, as it says in the question, you're getting extra time off or a voucher, well, it's actually not going to benefit you ultimately, because that's just like, it's like buying your feedback. But if you really care about the management, if you care about your employees and you want to work in a great workplace culture, well, then you will answer open and honestly, so that management will have real information to work with, so that they can move forward with best practices and recommendations that we can provide in order to improve that workplace culture for you guys.
Yeah, I think, Shane, when you're to make sure that you get honest answers in your survey, I think the two things we do. One is our managing director always sends an email before the survey. It's actually, our survey is live at the moment. It launched on Monday. But our managing director always sends an email out. And in that email, he encourages people to answer honestly, and explains that this information helps us to be better, so that we need people to tell us. So that's one way. We have a Unity team. So it was originally a Great Place to Work, but it's called the Unity team, who work on some of our employee engagement stuff. And they also promote the survey. And they talk about things that came up in previous surveys and how they've been addressed. So people are seeing that, okay, we talked about something before, something was done about it, it's worth my while being honest here. And the other is over time. You see that over time. I think when you're a Great Place to Work company, you kind of mature over the years as a Great Place to Work company. At the beginning, when we were doing our surveys and there'd be suggestions and things, there were lots of facilities type suggestions, or treats suggestions. We can have, let's have fruit on a Monday. Now they're all valid suggestions, and we took on board some of those. But over the years, I think we matured both in the responses that we got and in how we responded to them. So as you build that trust in those questions, that if people answer honestly, that you will do something about it, you start to get questions that relate really to what makes it a great place to work, to really what's important to your team, and some of the more difficult questions that you then have to work harder at to respond to.
Can I just jump in there then? Gráinne, something we talked about in the early days, that some of the responses, there was two things. I think some of the responses surprised you in terms of a basic request. And then what you just touched on there, and trying to dig in a little bit more to the responses. So we get the data responses, and then we get the responses to the open-ended questions. And you looked to facilitate a piece around working into that, and getting the team to articulate more. Could you talk into that a little bit?
Yeah, that bit about at the beginning and some of those facility stuff. And there was one thing that came up on that surprised us, that hadn't been asked for internally or that we weren't aware of. And it was some of our operations guys were looking for anti-fatigue mats for where they were standing at a machine, working a lot. And obviously we provided them immediately, but there was that bit of awareness that sometimes some things aren't asked for through the normal channels, but they were being asked for there. So some of those facilities type things are nearly like hygiene stuff, and you did them in the early years and got them out of the way, and you sort of cleaned that sort of thing up. And then as you saw, there were some dips in our graph, and we had one year where pride was down and that teamwork was down. And we had Jim came in from Great Place to Work, and he worked with our team, no managers in it, just the team, and had a really good focus group session with them to tease out some of the things that they felt weren't working, and then came back to management with recommendations. And it was for people to be able to talk freely to each other and freely without management there. And then we were able to put into place some of the suggestions or address some of the issues. And so often what it is about communication. I mean, that's one of the things that we've learned over the time: communicate. And when you think you've communicated, you haven't, still communicate. But that was part of that communication. It was getting that team together on their own to trash out and tease out where the issues were. And that worked really well for us. We had Jim with us at a conference as well. So where we had a full team conference, all of us there. He presented some of our results and then went through a couple of the issues too. We had workout teams working on those, sort of like a workshop on those as part of our
Brilliant.
conference.
So you really got into the data and flesh it out. And I suppose this is something we often talk about inside, is to get everybody involved to make it a great place to work. And you touched very quickly there on your Unity team, Gráinne, and that's, I think, something that organizations can miss, where it can be seen potentially that great place to work is up to the senior team or up to HR, but some of the activity and initiatives that you talked about there specifically with Jim was to bring everybody together and get them to collaborate, and for them to evidently see that they are contributing to making it a great place to work. So
their Unity team is a group of staff. They come together, they work on, initially working on Great Place to Work survey, a couple with suggestions, and just like our survey responses have matured and our company as a great place to work has matured, what way our Unity team works has matured, and they changed their name from Great Place to Work to Unity to move it from addressing treats and things like that to become about how we work together as a team and working towards those corporate objectives. So they became much more targeted, and staff members of the Unity team change over time, and they come to us to the management and to Colin, our MD, and they'll talk about some of the things that they think they would like to do. And also, we've had a time where one of the things that was coming up a lot on the survey was that people wanted flexi time. And we as a business have tried to figure out how we could manage that, how we could get a flexi time that would work for us. And we couldn't get something that would kind of really work. So we tasked the Unity team to look at it, to talk to their colleagues. And in turn, there wasn't really a definitive resolution then. And a lot of it was really talking about your managers and working within small teams. I suppose COVID has helped that whole flexible working for us, and maybe reassured people that some of the concerns that people would have had about how we would do some amount of flexible working, some of those concerns haven't arisen, and some of them we've been able to address. So they work very closely with full team and with management as well.
Fantastic. I think, look, what I'm hearing here is that you're listening all the time, that you know, over the years, you've started off the process through the survey, but then opening up the avenues for people to share and to communicate and to listen all the time. And it's back to that trust piece that you mentioned in the beginning, is to build that and develop that so that it is in place. And touching on that again and coming into the realms of COVID and the time that we've all been through, is having that foundation there in the beginning was very, very helpful. So which I'm just leading into. We've had, as I said, questions in advance, and one of them in particularly was around hybrid. And I know that you have a hybrid model there that you've built in. We actually do have a poll, I believe, around hybrid. So we might have an opportunity to pop that up there, because look, I suppose a lot of people talking about the future of work. And for me, the future is now, and organizations have come through remote to hybrid, and it's ever evolving. So just in terms of why we're asking this question here was particularly around global and your approach to hybrid. I know that you mentioned that you positioned something. There was a few starts, but you've come to a model that's really working for you there now. So I suppose we're just asking to see the audience this morning, if they engage with their people with a view to building that hybrid model. So I can see the poll there, and I can see the little message that says that I'm not allowed to vote on it, which is good. But I'm not seeing it populating with data. So it might, oh, there we go. It's in. So pretty much 50-50. That's interesting. So 53% yes, did ask their employees, and 47% didn't request a response. So I'm not going to say too much just on that poll at the moment. Gráinne, I might just let you, if you could, talk into your own experience, and just for the audience in general. I have seen a lot of questions coming in there, and myself and Shane will work through those after a few minutes to answer those. So bear with us, please. Thank you.
Yes, we have a hybrid model for our office team. Obviously, our operations team have to be there out and about, and they can't do their work from home. We started throughout COVID. We continued, I suppose, throughout COVID, talking to our team. So while they were working from home, we were talking to them about what works for them, what doesn't, how they're do they have everything they need. And then gradually, as it started to come time to, and we were being allowed back into the offices, we kept talking to them. We kept surveying them about how they felt about that and what their concerns were. So first of all, we were trying to address any of those concerns, and we were letting them know that the office was safe. Our safety officer did a lot of work on communicating with the team, showing them photographs of the office, how it was set up, what way it was going to work, what we would do, what you need to do when you're coming in, what you need to do when you're leaving, what desks you can use. And then we had people in just for one day, scattered days. And it was really to break that kind of fear of coming back, so that people could see the place and be happy enough that it was safe. We staggered start and finish times to help people not be coming in public transport in busy times. We increased our car parking spaces. So we made it as safe as possible for people to come back. So they were reassured about coming back into the office, first of all. Then we started to gradually increase, where we were working 1 day a week, gradually increasing up into 2 days a week. Then we were all back on lockdown again. So that was kind of like a false start to start again. But we were still surveying people. We were ringing people individually and talking to them about their needs and their concerns. And some people were just wanted to get back in. They did not want to be at home. Other people felt happier at home. And then there were people who wanted a mix. So we gradually worked on that. We originally had that every team had a team day. So if it was the finance team, they might be in on Tuesday, and the sales team might be in on Wednesday, and then you were in maybe 1 or 2 other days during the week. But we've changed that, because the reason we want people in the office is for that collaboration, for that getting people together, for that opportunity for somebody to overhear something being said in the office that relates to things that they're working at, or for that chance to say, oh, while you're there, can I ask you about this? And things that maybe somebody wouldn't have emailed or rang up about. So we've changed it to Thursdays. It's a day that everybody's to be in. You're in on a Thursday, and then you're in 2 other days. If you work a 5-day week, you're 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, but Thursday is the set day. So now we get to see everybody. I was coming in, and I might come in a couple of days, and there might be people that I never met because they were coming in other days. It's working really well. Obviously, during summer holidays, everybody wasn't in because there were people up. And now that we're into September and October and everything's settling down, we're getting more and more people in on the Thursday, and it's becoming that we're all in on that day. A little bit of enticing for people. We have Tasty Thursday on the second Thursday of the month. So we have some treats, or we have lunch, or we might have Thirsty Thursday someday. We might have Tasty and Thirsty Thursday. But it's nice, and it is really, really good to be seeing people. There are people who started during the pandemic and haven't had that feel, and haven't had to really get to see our culture and see the culture of care and trust in action. And I know they're knowing about it remotely. It's not quite the same as when we're all together.
Brilliant. That gives us a really good sense of how you build that out. And again, coming back to listening and building up that rapport where people feel that they can give a view, and that it'll be listened to and considered towards, particularly in that case, towards hybrid. So we have a group of questions in here. Actually, I'm really trying to keep up with them. So I know Gráinne, we're going to finish off, so we might just leave your slide up there at the moment. In terms of just bringing some of these questions together, there's a range, I suppose, naturally around the specifics of the survey, of the Trust Index survey. So somebody asking, I suppose the first question is, when can you do the survey? So we can launch the survey anytime throughout the year. So if we think back to what Shane was saying there about certified is the first level of recognition. And so that means you can be certified at any stage during the year, and your certification is valid for a consecutive 12 months. So if we run the survey and somebody's saying December might be too soon for them, that's absolutely fine. We could look to survey with the certified whenever suits you, and then your consecutive 12 months might be from November 2022 around to December 2023. I didn't answer the question clearly enough in the beginning, the first question around the headcount. So the minimum amount of responses we need is 10. So you might have 12 or 14 people in your organization. If 10 respond and you score well enough, then you can be certified, and you would be what we would consider a micro workplace, and you can achieve there. In terms of another question there coming up, and probably a little bit of confusion around this. So in the survey, we have a range of statements. People respond to those statements on a scale of 1 to 5. We consider both 4 and 5 to be a positive response. And it's of those positive responses, if you're scoring a minimum of 65% positive score, then you're certified. It does not mean the response rate. Somebody was asking a question there around, what if you don't get 100% response rate? 100% response rate is very unusual. Is overstating it. It's very, very rare. If we'd see 100% response rate, we'd be asking questions around what is going on there and driving that. So we're looking for a majority response. And once we get a majority response, excuse me, with the confidence ratio in place, then we can see that we can certify you. Excuse me. And another question around what if you score 80%? Does that take you into another stratosphere or another recognition altogether? So again, certified is that first level of recognition. And then if you were to score 80%, you certainly would be certified and you'd automatically be in consideration for best workplaces. And if we have a sector list in your sector, you'd be considered into that as well. And the final two that I cover in the survey batch, if I can call them that, is a really good question that if you don't achieve certified the first time around, is there supports there? Yes, there absolutely is. In fact, a lot of organizations will position this in the beginning with their people, excuse me, to say, we're engaging with Great Place to Work with a view to being certified over the next 3 years. So they're putting their foot forward and saying, well, look, success does not look like immediately achieving certified. If you don't achieve certified, this is like achieving a standard. It could be a quality standard or an ISO standard or regulatory standard. So it's not a standard of systems and processes, but it's a standard of people experience in your workplace. If there is a deficiency in an area, excuse me, if there's a deficiency in an area, this is where we have our expertise and we're able to identify that, prioritize that and help you with it. Excuse me. And the last one then is how do you, the question around what if people vent in the survey? And they do. We get to see lots of surveys and people do vent, but the structure of the survey, as I mentioned, is around statements with a response scale of 5. And then we have 2 open-ended questions. So one is, if it's a great place to work, tell us why. And the other one then is, if you could change or introduce something that would make it a better place to work for you, tell us what that is. There might be, venting in there. My own sense is it's good to hear it. A huge caveat around that second one around suggestions is you don't need to react or act on any or all of those suggestions. It's to gather them and understand them. Some of them will be in line with opinion across the country automatically anyway, as is standard, I suppose is the better way to describe it. But there might be some particular opportunities to tease those out and to go back to your people. So I've talked on a bit there. Shane, is there one or two? I see more questions coming in as I'm talking, but I can't quite see them quickly. So is there a question or two you want to jump in on there?
Just to say, Brian, you were talking.
Oh, sorry, Grania.
Sorry, Shane. Sorry. Just Brian, you were talking about the survey there, and the results of the survey, and not always been good. It can be very helpful to see if your practices are hitting home, because you might be doing lots of work on your wellness program, and really putting a lot of time and resources into it, and it helps then from the survey to see, is that being translated into your team feeling that they're being cared about and looked after? And if it's not, then you might need to look back at your wellness program and see why isn't it hitting home. So it can be very helpful for that, to look at the work that you're doing. And in other ways, you could be putting loads of work into your wellness program and you can see that the score is going up and up, and it is hitting home. So it can be, the survey can be used like that too. Sorry, Shane.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Absolutely. No, and not at all. And thanks for that. So, just a couple of more questions here in terms of, for example, how is the survey structured in terms of the scores being recorded, and are they, split into department level and so on, so that people can then take action thereafter? And yes, when it comes to delivering the survey report, it will be broken down into certain demographic groups. So you'll understand your survey scores by things like gender, age category, tenure, but you can add custom demographic groups to that scope when we're designing the survey for you. So things like department, division, location, whatever is applicable to your business, so that you can really get the most value out of your data as well. And we have another question from Katie. Is it free to become certified in terms of the process, or is there a charge? So in terms of our pricing, it's basically done on the number of employees that you have. We have brackets, for example, if you're between 20 and 50 employees, it's one price, so that, because we understand companies are hiring and all the time. So if you're interested in finding more about the pricing, please feel free to let us know. And I've also dropped a link in the chat to a 3-minute video. If you guys want to check it out, it kind of summarizes a lot of what we've covered today in terms of the structure of the survey and the benefits that it can bring to your business. So it's just there near the bottom of the chat. It's a YouTube link that covers a lot of, I think, the questions that have been kind of brought up here today. So that can be something very useful to share with your teams or decision makers internally if they're kind of looking to understand more about this process as well. And sorry, just
go ahead.
I just got one other question here from Marianne. Would this survey only be for our European team, or is it for the global team? So our certifications are delivered on a country level. So for example, if you want, we'd be looking at the responses from your employees in Ireland to determine if you're certified in Ireland. And then if the survey is covering Ireland and France and UK, for example, we'll break it down per country to determine if you're certified in Ireland and or UK and or France. But a lot of the times we do regional projects, global projects. So depending on the scope or the size of your company, we can accommodate these kind of larger projects as well. So the benefit in doing so is that you'll have one project management team in charge of delivering that survey worldwide in all those different languages, rather than kind of signing contracts in every single different country. So again, it's something, if you want to find out more, we'd love to have a chat about that.
Perfect. Thanks, Shane. I can see that I'm stunned by the amount of questions coming in, and trying to keep up with them and making sure that we're answering all of them. And I'm conscious of time, is that we're ticking towards the hour. There's one question around sharing back of information. I know you touched on that, Shane, but just to give somebody confidence around that. So when we run the survey and we close that out and we're coming back to you with the data, the third part of the process is the feedback and action planning session. And that typically is fed back to HR, including the senior leadership team, but very much the choice of the organization that we're coming back to will decide the initial audience in terms of the data and the feedback. And then I suppose putting together a message, and we absolutely encourage that you do cascade the information back to the colleagues and the team within the organization. But obviously that will need structure so that you're coming back to them with clarity around what the messaging that is that you received and what action the organization is going to take and who'd be responsible for that between, you know, the senior team or a Unity team like Grania touched on earlier on. A very early question that I did miss was around the public sector. Do we have, and we do have a number of clients in the public sector, some that are recognized, for example, would be the Comptroller and Auditor General. Others that have, you know, engaged and identified over the time would be the likes of the Central Bank, Office of Government Procurement, Fáilte Ireland, which would, I suppose, be broadly seen in the public sector, have actually been a very strong user and proponent and a great champion for a great place to work within organizations as well. So I know that somebody is looking to see a summary of the complete process and pricing, and you know, we're absolutely transparent on the pricing so that everybody who engages in the process is on the same basis. And I know the question was there, do you need to pay in advance? So yes is the answer to that. We're setting up the process, and you know, there is an investment around that. There is the opportunity to engage for a year, or as many organizations do now, over a 3-year period. But look, we've had a great range of questions there. I'm conscious that I don't want to not answer every question, but I think we've hit on most of them. I just really wanted to come back to you, Grania, firstly to say thank you very much for sharing all of that information. You shared a huge amount there, and touched on a lot of different strands. And I think this slide really embodies it really, really well. I kind of started calling this the honeycomb slide, because everything is interconnected. The whole piece is interconnected, and you've had quite the path from the early stage of engaging just to find out data about the organization to this brilliant celebration of being best workplace in Europe, and to celebrating that in Venice. But I suppose my closing question for you would be really around, you know, why would an organization do this? You know, in your view, why would they engage in the whole process?
Well, I sort of at the beginning, I talked about some of the benefits for the staff and that sort of retention. But remember back to achieving the corporate objectives. So that team working together works to, I'm trying to jump down my next screen. There you go. So achieving the corporate objectives. And the last year, it's a challenging year for everybody in business with COVID. And in this year, we have been recognized as Europe's Best Small Workplace. That's us celebrating in Venice with the Great Place to Work team. There's Green there. I'm just so proud of it. I'm just really, really so proud of my team, everybody that works with me, all my colleagues. It was just fabulous. We rebranded to global with significant planning, teamwork across business with our other markets, investments in assets and work equipment. And all our team, our dedicated team, are all instrumental in all of this. We successfully tendered and have retained the CIE contract, which is a really big thing for our business.
Fantastic.
We successfully audited across our 3 ISO accreditations. We've won Silver Award at the media industry for our best sales initiative, Thinking Outside the Bus. We've expanded our premium retail digital network in Mahon Point, and we have had another media first in Ireland with the launch of Amplify 3D Digital. And we've also signed a 5-year contract with Cork Bequeeve, which is Ireland's 2nd largest stadium. That's just some of our successes from the last year, but that's about us all. That's about that. Back to that slide of that team, you know, who our company is. It's all those people working together to achieve this. And I genuinely believe that our culture and that care and trust and the work we do to be a great place to work impacts this hugely. So that's us.
Perfect, Grania. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. I think we should leave that slide up. I think it's great to see the
I'd love to put it on a billboard.
Do you know a company who can do that for you?
I do.
That's fantastic. Look, thank you very much. Lots of thanks coming in directly for you there, Grania. And from me and from the team here, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day and week to share all of that information with us. We look forward to following up with everybody. For my own part, just want to say thanks to Shane and for our support team here for figuring out all those technical challenges and overcoming them. Fernanda, well done. Thank you very much. And Marina, as always, thank you indeed. So I hope you've got some value, everybody, from this webinar. We really just wanted to try and demonstrate that Great Place to Work provides a framework for you as an organization to measure against. There's no particular time that, you know, that isn't a good time to start, but now to run that first check-in, and we can help support you along the way. So we're pretty much bang on time, I think, and we're going to close out there with a big thanks, and any questions we haven't answered, we'll look to follow up on directly. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and I hope the weather improves wherever you are. Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you.